Little League Baseball, How to Hit and Run, featuring Dr. Bragg Stockton, head baseball coach at the University of Houston. In this program, Coach Stockton will teach you the basic swing components that are used by all successful hitters and the correct way to run and slide. Like all exercises and drills, the more you practice, the better you'll perform. Hitting. While there are many different styles of hitting, the following fundamentals are shared by most successful hitters.
I'd like to start in breaking the fundamentals of hitting down by trying to encouraging us all to think in terms of body parts and body joints as I go through this brief analysis of the swing. We'll think in terms of where the toes come into play, the heels, the knees, the hips, the hands, the elbows, the shoulders, the chin, the nose, and the top of the head. These are all strategic body parts that need to be carefully analyzed in front of a mirror by a Little League player, by a coach, if he's takes a mirror to his team practice, and have the players organize these thoughts in their minds so that kinesthetic picture, the picture of the player swinging, is constantly formed in his mind. We really don't need the bat right now. I'm going to lay it down right here next to my back foot for a purpose, but let's just talk about what the feet and the knees do. As we said a while ago, our feet will be a little wider than our shoulders, or about as long as the bat is long. We want to make sure that the weight is turned in on the inside portion of my feet. Now remember, now I'm lined up with the center of the plate with my belt buckle. Now you'll notice that I have 3 eyeballs attached to 3 different parts of my body: my belt buckle, my right knee, and my left knee. This very elementary example will help us teach something very difficult to the young man, the young player. He must learn to keep these 3 eyeballs focused towards the plate. Need to bend the knees so that there's going to be ample flexibility. The knees need to be pinched in as though they were gazing at the plate. I need to keep this effect all throughout the stride. The reason for this is this will help me keep my weight back. One of the damaging effects of a poor swing be brought about by taking the weight forward during the stride. Now my eyeballs are not facing the plate. I want the eyeballs to face the plate throughout the entire stride. The stride is that movement brought about by picking my foot up and setting it down again. It can be right where you picked it up, set it down. It can maybe be 4 inches or 3 inches or 2 inches or whatever length you want. But as Little League coaches and as Little League players, I think we need to understand that the younger the player, the harder it is for him to control his body during the swing. So consequently, the longer the stride, the more trouble I can get into if I'm a young player. So you young players, make sure you try to check the width of your feet, a little wider than your shoulder, length of your bat, and have that short stride on the ball of the foot. Now, I think it's important for you little guys to take your shoes and socks off and right behind your big toe, draw a big circle right on the ball of the foot with a marks a lot. Big circle right behind the big toe of your stride foot. And what you need to do is to constantly get in front of that mirror and practice striding on the ball of that foot. Stride on the ball of the foot. We don't want to stride on the flat part of the foot with the front eyeball facing out. The front eyeball must be facing back into the plate. What that will do is to keep my weight back, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But I want to stride on the ball of my foot so that this part of my foot is not touching the ground, like this. You don't want to stride on the outside of the foot or the flat part of the foot, and most specifically, try to keep the toe from moving outward. If the toe moves outward, here comes the front knee, here comes the back hip, the shoulder, and I'm out in front of the pitch. Much of the hitting dynamics, as you'll see, kind of like a domino effect. If you stack up a lot of dominoes and trip the first one, they're all going to be tripped and fall down. If you make a mistake early in the swing, it's going to affect you later in the swing. So I think one of the most important things in hitting is for the young player to get things organized from the belt down. The 3 eyeballs, it's an absolute must for you coaches in any youth league program to make your players come to every practice having drawn or taped or fastened 3 eyeballs to his body. Right knee, left knee, belt buckle, and make them go home and practice hundreds of times a week in front of that mirror, keeping those eyeballs in towards the plate during the stride until the ball of foot hits. Then I want to take all 3 of these eyeballs and as a unit, all 3 of them turn and face the pitcher as I contact the ball. The eyeballs do the same. They stay the same during the stride. They stay the same during the swing. Have every one of the players cut out a triangle. All right, now this triangle, or the triangle of hitting that I'd like to refer to it as being, is the front knee, is the bottom part of that triangle, is in. The hip weight is back, and the front shoulder is down. Now, if any one of these parts are violated, for example, if I take my back hip and just take off with it forward, then it throws that front knee and the front shoulder out and up. I can't hit from that position. If I take that front knee, as we were saying a while ago, and stride outward, then it's going to pull the back part of that triangle, pull that shoulder out and up, and I can't hit. As I was saying a while ago, if the front shoulder goes up, it's going to pull the hip weight forward, the knee flies out, I'm going to drop under the pitch. So make every one of your players bring a triangle, their own personal triangle. The distance between their front knee and their back hip, and the distance between their back hip and their front shoulder, and of course the shoulder, front shoulder to the front knee. And have them practice just striding. Now you'll notice the first movement is a little movement backwards to make sure that 60% of my body weight is on the back hip, not leaning back across this bat, but always keeping in mind that the eyeballs need to stay towards the plate. So you have a system of checkpoints. You say, check your eyeballs, check your triangle. Now, one's no good without the other. If I check my triangle, lose my eyeballs, now I start drifting back this way and all of a sudden the shoulder comes up. If I check my eyeballs and not my triangle, I might start leaning. So I need to keep my hip weight back, the triangle. Check the triangle, check my eyeballs. Now as I stride, remember the first movement is a slight movement back, back to keep that weight where it should be, stride on ball foot, wham. I turn the eyeballs as a unit, and I turn this triangle as a gate, like it's slam a gate. There's all kinds of different boxes. As you study major league hitters, you can see this very graphically, that some of them have a rectangular box. Some of them may stretch that box out a little bit, but they never straighten out that corner. You never want to straighten the corner of the box out, because then I start to swing with the entire arm, and I end up doing what we call sweeping the bat. That creates very poor bat speed and bat control. So what I want to do is keep the hinge effect. Keep the hinge right in that lead elbow until I contact the ball. This is the only way that I can throw the bat at the ball. Hitting, as I said in the beginning, is a two-phase act. Part of it's visual, part is physical. But probably the most important part of the physical portion of hitting is being able to keep this eyeball effect, the triangle effect, the box effect, and then throw the bat at the ball. I got to throw the bat at the ball, and to do that, I've got to make sure that I have a proper box. Now, the box can be flattened out, or it can be more of an angular effect. I don't think for the young players that a totally vertical box is very advisable. The reason for this is because most of us as 8, 9, 10-year-olds are weak in the hands and the forearms. And when we hold the bat perpendicular to the ground and have this vertical upright box, the first thing that happens to the weak hitter is to let the lead hand go up. The lead hand goes up, the barrel drops, I hit the ball up in the air, or I strike out or foul it off. You see, let's just suppose that I put a piece of chalk right into the bottom of this bat, and there was a blackboard here, and I would just make a 1-inch mark. Now notice how far I'm dropping the barrel of the bat, 4 or 5 inches. So I've got to get, in my mind, I've got to see the lead hand acting like an airplane. Wherever my box is located, I've got to land my airplane onto the runway. The runway is the ball. I got to land right through the center of the ball. Any deviation in my airplane, the lead hand, and the barrel of the bat's going to be affected. My bat control, bat speed really is distorted, particularly on those contact 3 pitches where I've got to stay on top of that ball and drive it to the opposite field. So I think in the very beginning, the young player must realize the importance of where is my best box, keeping that corner concept in his mind. Find out where his best box should be. Now, if you'll watch my back foot, this is a drill you should do in your rooms at night, players. Put your bat down right next to your back foot. And when you execute your full mechanical swing, make sure that that heel comes up and in front of that bat. Now I'm resting on my toe, the ball of my foot, and my heel is always up towards the sky. Now what happens to a lot of young players is that that back heel crosses the bat, or in some cases it never turns at all. Consequently, the hips will never open. These eyeballs will never turn. That triangle will never slam forward. Consequently, I'm going to always be dropping under the ball. The shoulder will be coming up, that backside drops, the airplane takes off, the head comes out, and I can't hit. Players, if you're not getting that chin on that shoulder, if the chin isn't grazing that shoulder when you hit, you check to see what are you doing back here and back here with that heel and with that knee. It's got to turn. It's got to turn. It can't stay still. Everything turns as a unit. Let's talk about the wrist a little bit. I think you young players should go get you a hammer, go out in the garage, get you a nail, a board on the side, and watch what happens to your wrist when you're hammering that nail into the board. That your back wrist is facing up. This is an elongation. Watch how far I can move the bat by just elongating it. I make the contact, then it rolls. I don't want to roll and make contact. I want to elongate my wrist just like I was hammering a nail into a board. If I was hammering it with my lead hand, I would meet the ball and then roll. Watch how far I can move the bat just with the elongation of my wrist. So I got to get into the habit of elongating the wrist. Now, the easiest way to elongate the wrist is to make sure the elbows extend. When the elbows extend in joint, as soon as I contact, and remember, back to the box, keep the box, slow body, slow stride, not a fast one, but a slow one, quick turn, quick throw, quick elongation, quick extension.
Bunting. Learning to bunt properly could be the difference between winning and losing. Follow Coach Stockton's bunting procedures to master this difficult skill.
Sacrifice and drag bunting are a couple of phases of the game that are often overlooked and underly developed in many ball players on each team, I guess on any level. It's simply catching the ball. I want to pretend like I have a glove on the end of my bat. Russell, throw me a ball. If I were catching the ball, I would catch it. If I was catching it with my hand, with my glove hand, I would not jab at it. I would not jab at it. When I catch a ball, I give a soft little cushion and just kind of give with it. Well, the same thing is true if I had a glove on the end of my bat. Just imagine this glove nailed to the end of that bat, and I'm just going to catch it. I'm not going to push at it. This is very important in teaching young players to bunt. For example, our proper sacrifice bunt position is to just simply get in a hitting position and spin the feet. Spin them. I'm on balance. This is the way I hit, so I go ahead and bunt this way. Throw me a ball. Keep the elbows to the ground. Take it if it's a bad pitch. Learn to take the ball right back to the bat, right back into the catcher's mitt if it's a bad pitch. I want to make sure that I see the ball right into my bat. I want to go up and down like an elevator. Now, what I want to try to do is to have a firm hand on the top hand and loose on the bottom. I'm going to illustrate a point. Throw me a pitch. I held so loose that the knob just came out of my hand. Now, I won't want to hold it that loose, but I want to make sure it's not tight. The hands are about 12 inches apart. My knees are bent in a scissor clap position, and I go up and down like an elevator. Another pitch. Now, let me illustrate just about where we'd like to bunt it. Just inside the grass lines, about 6 to 10 feet fair. Sacrifice bunt. All right, on the drag bunt, it's very important to make sure I slide the top hand up, the knob hits my elbow, and I have an angle, like a scissor clap. One more time. I wait until the ball is almost on me before I get into this position. And then I push off towards first. Now on the sacrifice bunt, I square when the pitcher starts to break. When the pitcher starts to break, that's when I square. Now, okay, now a couple of things we want to think about on the sacrifice and drag bunt. The sacrifice bunt, I go ahead and give myself up just a little earlier, as I said, when the pitcher breaks, lay the ball down on the grass, just fair right out there on the grass, somewhere between 6 and 10 feet from the line. But on the drag bunt, I wait just a little bit longer. Now you left-handers, on your drag bunt, you're going to execute it just like the sacrifice bunt, but you wait until the ball gets almost on you. And then you pivot your feet, bunt it down that third base line, and cross over. We don't want to be crossing over and taking the bat with us to first base.
Running. Speed on the bases wins games. Learn the base running technique that adds speed to your game.
Each time a hitter hits a ground ball, that hitter needs to lower their head and sprint down that line as fast as possible. They need to think seriously about their running style. The world-class sprinters will tell you that the hands need to be nice and loose and to move up towards the chin and not across the body or down low to the waist. So the arms should move up towards the face near the chin. The elbows should move parallel to the ground and the body lean should be forward. If a player was sprinting down a foul line, for example, the coach should be able to stand behind him and see which way the toes are pointing. If the toes are pointing out, then this is going to slow that runner down. So in addition to body lean and the movement of the arms, we're trying to instill into our players the importance of the toes reaching out towards that line. So I think it's very important that every coach at one time or another studies and analyzes the running style of his players. Now, when that player hits that ground ball and starts sprinting down that line, the habits necessary for maximum speed should have already been developed. This is done at practice. It can be these proper movement patterns relating to sprinting can be reviewed along with conditioning drills during or after practice. So as we go from home plate down that line, what we want to do is to try to hit that bag in the very center of the base and then turn our head towards the fence, continuing to run right on through the bag. What a lot of hitters, a lot of base runners make a mistake of doing is when they are approaching the bag, some of them even slide head first, some of them reach out and try to stretch with that long extra stride in hopes that they'll beat the throw, and yet injuries to knees and ankles can follow that kind of an activity. So it's strongly suggested that the player just sprint right through the bag with his normal stride, check the side of the fence. Now the reason they do that is to make sure that if the ball gets by the first baseman, then they can just take another step and plant their foot and head towards second. They should not have to rely on the first base coach to tell them when a ball is thrown by the first baseman. Now, once we get to first base, one of our principles that we have to live by is to stay on the base until I get a sign. Now, a lot of players get off the base. They're looking at the first base coach, or they're looking at home plate, the hitter or the pitcher. They're looking at the coach over there, and all of a sudden the pitcher comes over and picks them off. So what we want to do is to make sure that once we reach first base, after we come down that line for time, to stay on the base until we get our sign. Now, let's suppose, for example, that the hitter didn't hit a ground ball, but he hit a fly ball or a base hit. Now, will react differently to first base in that particular case. What he's going to do is run down to a point outside the foul line approximately 10 feet and about 15 feet prior to reaching first base. As he runs to that point, he'll start to tilt his body in towards the bag. Now, as he hits the center of the bag, he pulls his arm back towards the pitcher's mound and heads straight towards second. Now, what he wants to do in this particular maneuver is to say to himself, I'm going to go as far as those outfielders will let me go. I want to think second. If the ball is hit along the foul lines towards the corner, or hit in the alleys, or the outfielders are slow getting to it, or maybe they pick it up and bobble it, then he's going to go right on into second base and with a advancement of an extra bag. Now, what sets that up is the instant he hits that ball, he's got to say to himself, I'm going to second, I'm not settling for first. This is what we call thinking second. Now, what he'll do as he hits that bag and heads towards second, he'll sprint as hard as he can for approximately a third of the way towards the bag at second before he even closely resembles stopping. There's a point in there when he can see the play in front of him. He can see where the ball is and where the outfielders are doing with it, and then based on as soon as they get to the ball, whether they're coming up throwing, he'll stop and come back to first. Now, coaches, you should make a point to your players to tell them that as they come back to the bag, that they keep their eye on that ball. A base runner should really be his own coach. He needs to know where the ball is at all times. He needs to know the quality of play of the outfielders fielding the ball, how fast they are getting to the ball, how well they throw. He needs to know which way that wind's blowing, whether it's favoring him or favoring the outfielder. He needs to know who's coming up next, and he needs to know the score and the outs. So he computes all this in his mind so they help him to make more quality decisions when he's running the bases. The stand-up slide is a relatively safe slide if executed properly, and yet it has a lot of versatility to it. Russell's going to demonstrate the slide in just a moment, but first of all, let's discuss something very important about it. Russell, come in here and get in a stand-up slide position. All right, do it towards the base. Now, on the stand-up slide position, the right toe is pointed to the sky, the other leg is laying down, and the hands are over the head like we're holding on to a bat. When we come into the base, we're going to put the foot down, and our inertia, hold on the bat, is going to pull us up, and now we're opened up to the next base. That's the reason why you bend the right knee upwards. Now, if we bend the left leg, then it makes it somewhat more uncoordinated to have to cross over and head to the next base. So once again, here we go. Bend the left leg stays under, right toe hits the base, and we're up and open to the next base. Now, when teaching the slide to the young players, step off 4 steps from the base. We'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that'll be 4 of their steps, and we'll put a bat at that point to remind them when they're coming into the bag that there's an imaginary line, and that is the last step that they take across that line. Then they just simply sit down. There's no jumping at it. See, most of them want to jump at it. Gravity's the only thing that's pulling us down, so we don't want to make it more difficult than it is. Just come in and sit down in a chair. Just sit down. Throw that right toe up, hands up, and sit straight down on the hip pockets and let the inertia carry us into the bag. Now, Russell, right where you are, just take 4 steps and sit down. Now, I would advise you as coaches to have your players walk through this over and over again. Let's do it again. Before you allow them to go through this drill. But tell them to do this in the backyard. Take these steps and sit down. Let's do it one more time. We'll go left, right, left, sit down. Left, right, left, sit down. They might use their bat holding it over their head. Let's go again. Make sure they hold on to the bat over their head. Left, right, left, sit down. Okay, now the ones that gouge their feet into the ground or have to hold on to it or lose their balance over this way or lose their balance that way are just not there yet, and you shouldn't permit them to slide until they can go home, get in front of the mirror, and develop this habit. One more time. Left, right, left, sit down. Okay, once we get to that point, then we're ready to slide. Now, the first slide that he's going to demonstrate is just sliding straight into the bag. Let's watch him. Okay, now what I'm doing here is just sliding straight into the bag, making sure that I land only on my hip pockets and I don't lose my balance from side to side. Now on the next slide, he's going to watch and see which way my glove moves in relationship to the base, and he's going to slide away from the tag. I could reach over here, thus he'd slide this way, reach and touch it with his hand. If I reach this way to take the throw, he'd slide to that side and tag it with the other hand. So Russell, let's demonstrate that. Go. That way it makes it much harder for me to tag him since I have to reach all the way over on the other side of the bag. Okay, Russell, let's slide the other way. Here we go. Once again, we're still in that same classic bent leg or stand-up slide position.
Like all exercises and drills, the more you practice, the better you'll perform. Little League Baseball, How to Pitch and Field, featuring Dr. Bragg Stockton, head baseball coach at the University of Houston. In this program, Coach Stockton will teach you the dynamics of the pitching delivery, as well as the fundamentals of proper fielding. Like all exercises and drills, the more you practice, the better you'll perform. Pitching. Master the fundamentals of pitching, and you'll add some pop to your fastball and reduce your risk of injury.
Phase one would be hiding the ball properly, stepping back only a few inches, and making sure that the body is balanced straight up and down. Now what I do on phase 2 is take my foot and turn it so it's in front of the pitching rubber. I want to make sure that my back toe does not come off the ground until my shoulders get started into its turn. This is very important. The reason for this is to make sure that I don't drift in front of this imaginary wall that's in front of the rubber. I've drawn a line on the mound approximately a foot in front of the pitching rubber. You young pitchers, try to imagine a wall standing right in front of you. In fact, this is a super drill to execute over and over in your room. Get 1 foot away from your wall and try to see if you can get this turn behind the wall. We don't want to run into the wall, thus be drifting towards the plate. Now, to ensure this from not occurring, to ensure yourself from not drifting forward, make sure that I step back only a few inches and that I keep my back toe close to the ground until I get into the turn before I start to actually let the foot come off the ground and the knee coming up to its position. Now, what I've got to make sure that I do is that my leg strength has got to be under my body weight when I get up here at the top of phase 2. I want to make sure that the knee is tight if you prefer to have your knee up high. Some pitchers wrap the knee more than others. Some pitchers kick their leg out. If there's not a preference, I would suggest you keeping that knee up higher than the belt. And I would suggest the knee coming in close to the body. This will work better with your leg action and arm action as you get into the other phases of the delivery. Secondly, keep the shoulder closed. Keep that front shoulder closed and make sure that the loop is in relatively close to your body. Now, this is what we call a pitcher's loop, where the ball and the glove meet. Keep that loop in close to the body if you're going to throw from over the top. So at the top of phase 2, I've got my hip pocket, my knee, and my shoulder turned towards the catcher. It almost pretend like you got an eyeball drawn right here, and it's looking right straight at the catcher. An eyeball on the hip pocket of your uniform, and it's looking at the catcher. An eyeball slightly behind the shoulder. All 3 eyeballs are looking right at the catcher, right here. In other words, you young pitchers, try to stay away from this kind of a position at phase 2. Now, right now, the eyeballs are looking off to the side. I lose all this hip rotation that gives me power and allows me to get my shoulder over and keep the ball low. So what I want to do is to make sure that in the phase 2, not only do I get into the turn before the back foot comes off the ground, but I also make sure that I stay behind that wall, okay, tight. And the glove and the knee are close together. This is the kind of the halfway point of a pitcher's delivery. Phase 1 and 2 are slow, they're smooth, they're deliberate. There's no rush. You don't run at the plate. You don't rush these 2 phases. Everything is slow and smooth, deliberate, and specific. Now, once I get into this position, phase 2, everything stays closed, then I go into 3, 4, 5. The phase 3 is a break of the hand from the glove. Now, it's very important to time this with the knee starting down. Once the knee starts down, at the very precise moment that knee starts down, that's when 2 other things go down. The ball starts down from the glove and the back knee collapses. We want to have an angle in the back knee. There's got to be an angle in my back knee so I can push. I got to be able to push later in the delivery. So when I get up here to phase 2, I want to make sure that my leg doesn't remain stiff and just lean into the delivery. To do this, I've got to be very strong in my legs. And we'll discuss strength in the legs later on, but it's very important that the pitcher has extremely strong legs. So up here at phase 2, I'm balanced. Then when the knee starts down, that's when that back knee starts to collapse. The elbow starts to straighten out behind the body. Now, the knee is a hinge joint. The elbow is a hinge joint. Just try to remember that the hinge joints straighten out. From the side, we're like this. We're like this. Everything stays closed. The hip stays closed. We don't open up. So I'm right there. I'm right there. I'm right there. Make sure that that knee starts to straighten out as the elbow starts to extend. The shoulder still stays closed. A common mistake of a lot of young pitchers is made at this point. They'll be up here at the top of phase 2, and then they'll start to open as they start to extend. A lot of them keep the elbow bent and short arm the ball. Some of them turn the wrist upward, restricting the wrist action. So what we want to encourage you to do, you young pitchers, we'll talk about arm action later, but make sure that that elbow extends. When the elbow extends, it loosens up my wrist. Now, let's go back to phase 3 now. We're back up here at phase 2. Make sure that we get that good early turn. We're staying tight. Now, once I start down, that shoulder stays closed. The knee starts to straighten. The elbow straightens. Now, the back of the hand stays towards home plate. It doesn't turn out until I extend. Then the second part of arm action occurs in the phase 4. All right, let's look at it. Now, remember we said we had an eyeball in the hip pocket, eyeball in the knee, and an eyeball behind the shoulder. And that we want to make sure that we turn those towards first or third base, depending on whether I'm a right or left-handed pitcher, quickly. It's like a hitter staying closed on the stride and then turning real quick with the hips. We got to make sure that we stay closed. Stay closed. We don't want to open up here at the top. That knee does not turn over like this. It stays closed as it straightens. By closed, I mean the eyeball still is looking towards home plate. The hip pocket stays towards home plate. The back of the shoulder stays towards home plate as the arm drops. Now that's very important, because if I start to open as I extend, i.e. this way, then I lose all my hip pop, all my power. This is my power position as far as pitching is concerned. All I've got to do as soon as I feel the elbow extend is to pop. Now let's stop and look at this for just a second. A pitcher's delivery in these 5 phases is made up of a lot of key instant points. Points that a pitcher has to cue on. For example, one of them is when that elbow extends. In other words, how long do I stay into that position as my back leg is pushing? See, I'm pushing off of this rubber. I'm pushing, I'm driving, I'm building power. Well, how long do I keep pushing and driving before I pop and get my body over the top? Well, you do it as soon as the elbow reaches its total extension, like right now, now, now. In other words, as soon as I feel that elbow extend, that's when the pop takes place, right now. Now, if I do that, 2 other things need to be considered. One is the back of the heels. The back of the heels always look behind the pitcher at the same time. Okay, in this case, I'm a right-handed pitcher, so they're looking towards first base. When I pop, I make sure that both of them turn back towards second. In other words, the heels of a pitcher do the same thing at the same time. We don't want to be up here opening up and letting one heel face second and the other still back here at first. I don't have any hips. I don't have any pop. Now, if I don't have real good pop to my hips and real good push to my back leg, then my upper part of my body will always be slow, and I'll be dragging through the delivery. This is the part that runs a lot of pitchers out of baseball. It either runs them out of baseball because they can't keep the ball down and get ground balls and strikeouts, or it runs them out of baseball because they load up their elbow. Any pitcher who drags through the delivery with a slow shoulder, slow arm action is going to have serious elbow and shoulder problems. Consequently, they'll just be forced out of baseball, not because they don't have the quality to pitch, but because of the fact that their dynamics of their delivery didn't allow them to prevent arm injury from occurring. Now keep in mind, you young pitchers, what we're trying to do, our main objective is to keep the ball down in the strike zone, below the hitter's hands and just above his knees. So I've got this area right here to work with to the hitter. When that hitter's up there, I focus below his hands and just above his knees. So if I do that, it's not just a focus, but my body has to be in that position to deliver maximum velocity pitches below the hands and above the knees. So if I don't stay closed throughout that 3 and pop hard throughout phase 4, the shoulder never comes fast enough. It'll always be behind and dragging. All right, now let's look at something else here. I want to make sure that by the time my foot hits, now you'll be in phase 3, remember the heels are facing back behind you, and the ball of the foot is heading towards that point where I'm going to land on the mound. But just before I land, I pop it. It stays closed, and then the heels pop. Now by the time the foot lands flat, I want to have this back heel up. The back heel turns up. What I don't want to do is to drag off the rubber. I don't want to have my back leg do this. Slow. This slows the side down. It slows that pop. It slows the upper body action from coming over. So another one of my checkpoints, those specific cue points, is to make sure that the throwing shoulder is at a peak going forward as well as upward. It's over the heel at a peak by the time the front foot hits. Look at my hips. My belt buckle is facing straight towards the catcher. Straight towards the catcher by the time that happens. We don't want to get into an overstride position where I'm way out here, way off balance, still trying to get through it. And that's exactly what's going to happen if I get back here at the beginning and start running. Right there, you see this happen a lot. And then everything's with the arm. Now I'm standing straight up. The coaches holler for the pitcher to follow through. The follow through doesn't make any difference. I've already released the ball too high. The shoulder had to do all the work. The arm is laboring. Phase 5 is not a phase that I have to think about. It's something that I set into motion with the proper with the proper phase 1 and 2. If my 1 and 2 is nice and slow, tiny step back, nice and deliberate, then I can't stop. I just keep on going. I just keep on going. Phase 5 is just a normal part of a proper delivery. The back leg comes over the top, the elbow comes by the knee, and then I set it down.
Fielding. These 5 basic fielding drills, when practiced repeatedly, will ensure your ability to consistently field the ball and throw with accuracy and strength.
Ready position. Russell, just get your toes on this line, and the feet will be about as wide as the bat. Now, for you Summer League coaches, have your players the first day at practice put a bat down. If they have their own bat, then put it down on the ground in front of them. So it's very easy for them to not only understand how far their feet are to be away from each other, but also that the toes are on a straight line. We'll stay off the heels, and the hands are leaning across the line. Notice what we call a ready position. The knees are kind of pinched in. Now, what we don't want to see is this type of ready position, or this type of ready position, or this type of ready position, or this type of ready position. So you summer league coaches have seen all kinds of improper ready positions. Just try to build into your practice sessions during your inter-squad play or your drills to make sure that they're always down in a ready position prior to every pitch. The fielding position is the alignment between the glove heel and the throwing toe. Now the toes will point straight ahead, the hands out in front, approximately the length of their favorite bat, and line up with the belt buckle. But what you want to do is have them go from a ready position to a fielding position, and then just take a bat and see if you can slide it between the heel and toe. Now, what you're going to find is a lot of them will be in this type of position, fielding the ball, or this type of position, or this kind of position, all kinds of weird, unbalanced positions. And throughout the defensive series, we talk about the fielding tee and the importance of fighting to get the feet into that classical fielding position with the hands out in front of that bat, the bottom of the tee and the top of the tee. We need to talk about the skip and throw position because it's a classic position that all you young players must memorize. Every time I feel the ball, cushion the belt, I need to come up to the chest with the ball in the glove. If the ball is rolling free on the ground, pick the ball up and bring it to the chest in the glove. So many eras in baseball are throwing eras, and they're brought about by throwing the ball in another fashion than what I'm about to illustrate. I think every time, whether the ball's on the ground or whether you just caught the ball or fielded it, come straight to the chest with it in the classic skip and throw position. Now what I have, in addition to having the ball in the glove against the chest, I have my shoulder and my hip lined up with my target. My target is the chest of my teammate. And I want to make sure that I skip, have quick arm action, quick, not tense and slow, but quick arm action. And I want to follow through with my shoulder and my back leg over the top. Now it's important that that back leg pushes off and turns up so that the backside is not restricted when you throw. It's also important that that back throwing shoulder follows through towards the target that you're throwing to. We see so many times the back leg and the back shoulder stop in its restricted pattern and the ball sails up high and off to the side. So we have two classic positions here, the skip and throw position and the follow-through position. Next we have what we call a short hop drill. Now the short hop drill, Russell, if you want to come up here and assist me with this, the player gets into a classic fielding position, that fielding tee. Let's come on up to here. Get in a classic fielding position, and once again we have the heel and the toe lined up. The hands are out at the end of that bat tee, and we're going to work on glove dexterity. Now, this drill is executed in pairs. In other words, Russell and I might be partners. So I'd back off, starting close and starting slow, and we'll start with two hands. Stay in that fielding position and just nice and easy right at first. Nice and easy. All we want to do is keep the glove open, keep the hands fanned open out in front, watch the ball come into the glove. Notice that Russell's nose follows the ball into the glove. Now, after we've gotten to that point, then he puts one hand behind his back and tries to do it strictly with the glove hand only. And then I might throw some to his throwing side, so he has to backhand it. He has to take his glove from a fielding position and put it in a backhand position. Once again, the ball and the glove must go the same direction. What we're trying to work on is glove quickness or glove dexterity. Okay, now we can even do it if we're close enough without a glove, with bare hands, and just reach out and bring the ball into the body, watching the ball come into the hands. So there's actually 4 ways to execute the short hop drill. With no glove on, with 2 hands, with 1 hand behind you, and a backhand position. In the rhythm drill, the reason why I call it the rhythm drill, because it's executed in a rhythmical pattern. Really, it is a form check for fielding and throwing the ball. Now, Russell is going to move from a ready position, charge the ball, get into a fielding position, cushion, come up to a skip and throw position, follow through position, right to the chest of the teammate he's throwing to or working with on this drill. So let's watch Russell go through the ready position, fielding position, skip and throw position, follow through position all at once, and we call it a rhythm drill. Okay, Russell, back up just a little bit. Okay. Okay. All right, now Russell, come right on up here and get a ready position and pretend like the ball was hit to your glove side 3 hard strides. Now, he's going to execute what we call a crossover step. Let's go ahead and get ready, go. Now, what we've got to do is learn to cross over properly. All right, cushion, skip, and throw. All right, come on back and let's do it again. Now, on the crossover step, just stop and freeze when you cross over. All right, the belt buckle must be going in the direction of the ball. You do not want to take this type of step, this needless step, waste time. I haven't moved my body when I'm going to my right or left. I want to cross over and get underway quickly as soon as the ball is hit. So, Russell, let's demonstrate this. Okay, stay right there. Let's go the other way. Couple more times. Okay. Now, I think it's very, very important that the player understand the importance of fighting to get the feet set and lined up with the ball. The ball should be lined up with the belt buckle or that middle bat line that we talked about on the fielding tee. Now, they've got to learn to fight to get those feet set. Heel-toe alignment and the hands out in front, the knees bent, and the hips low. That's the classic fielding position. Let's talk a little bit about the backhand drill. Now, suppose I'm fighting to get my belt buckle in front and I can't on the ball's hit to my throwing side. Then I need to backhand the ball. I need to backhand the ball. So, Russell, let's go through this backhand drill and get in that backhand position as the ball reaches your glove. Ready? Now, once again, we don't have time to skip and throw, so we just come on up and throw. Plant that throwing side foot and throw. Now, it's important that you little guys remember the relationship between the backhand position and the scissor claps. Russell, I want you to go through the backhand position, freeze, and stop. Go. Now, do some scissor claps. Now that is the position that you got to get your feet in when you backhand the ball. Pull away from your body weight, pull back so that you're able to throw. Ready? Notice the cushion. Straight back and throw. Crossover on fly ball drill. Now let's bring Russell up here and let him show how this is done. Once again, get into a ready position, and we're going to the ball is going to be over his glove shoulder, and he's going to cross over, not step back and back pedal. Let's watch him. Now, on as many of these drills as possible, we try to catch the ball with two hands. For you little guys, some of the major league players will catch the ball with one hand, but they've got big hands, large gloves that are well trained. They work on their gloves constantly, and the leather in these gloves are such that will allow them to almost manipulate them any way they want to, and they feel comfortable catching it with one hand. I would suggest strongly that you always catch fly balls with two hands. Now on this crossover step, remember that one of the most damaging things to an infielder or an outfielder going back on a fly ball is to take this step back and another step back and then finally cross over. I'm losing a lot of valuable time. So what I want to do is open up, cross over, and be on my way full speed within that first step or step and a half. Run to the ball, then catch it with two hands if possible. Try not to jog to it just in time to get there, but sprint, and if you have to wait on the ball, wait on it. But cross over and sprint to the ball.
Like all exercises and drills, the more you practice, the better you'll perform.